Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast covering Ipswich Town since 2015. I'm Richard Woodward and you are tuned into the Prematch show, MK Dons edition. Joining me tonight, my Prematch colleague, Seb Brown, and special guest, as those of you watching on YouTube can see, Steve Moore of the Turnstile Blues Collective. Evening, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Good evening. Yeah, not too bad. Been
Steve,
no sport during the last couple of days.
No, well, and ironically, not too much news to talk about because we did a live show. So I'm sure we'll find plenty to talk about in terms of MK. But for those of you who don't know, Steve, you're here, as I said, representing the Turnstile Blues fanzine. We've got another issue coming out. It's been a while since the last one.
Yeah, the last one was January 2020, I think.
Wow. So
pre-pandemic era.
A bumper edition. So we'll talk about that shortly. And fresh off his trip to Cheltenham and an appearance on our live show midweek, Seb Brown. Seb, how are you? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Not too bad. Yeah. I will be. It's my fault. It's a pre-record this week. I apologise for no live show, but I'll be heading southbound this time tomorrow on the M6. But we'll get back to the live shows starting from next week. Making your home debut this season with your 0% record in the league after Tuesday. No, it's not your fault. Maybe just a curse. Not your fault. It's not your fault. We can't blame you. Let's catch up on all the goings on this week. And I think I'm right, Seb, in saying that we didn't deal with Tom Carroll's arrival in any great detail. I don't think we did Kyle Edwards' arrival really in much detail either. I think that I'm trying to remember what day it was last week, but we didn't really mention it on the live show or the pre-match show. So let's talk about both of them. And you've seen them both in action, Seb, haven't you? Recently? Tom Carroll, very, very briefly. Carl Edwards, I mean, I described him as unplayable to Ben last night on the live show, which went down well. He was superb, yeah. I mean, he tied in the second half noticeably, but it looks like we've got ourselves one hell of a player there. Not quite sure how we got him in League One, but he was so positive. He's got a great touch. He just looks to run. Every time he picks up the ball, he looks to do something positive, and he's kind of got the skills and the end product to pull it off. He looks like a real good find, and he's sort of come out of nowhere, hasn't he? I guess we were all anticipating, a three of Burns and maybe Dobra on the left and Fraser in the 10 with Barry, etc., to maybe a Luku to dovetail throughout the season. But if he stays like that, he's an absolute guaranteed nailed on starter because he was absolutely superb, and I really hope he starts on the weekend. I know what Ben told me last night. He said never ever fall in love with a winger. They are notoriously inconsistent, but if he can replicate 80% of what he did on Tuesday night, we're in for a great season with him.
One thing I thought at Burton when he came on for the last 20 minutes is he beat defenders on both sides and crossed well. And obviously the shot cross off the bar, I think it was actually a shot, although I wasn't sure at the time, is spectacular. But again, he was impressive then. I did wonder whether with our wingers we're going to find that we want to swap them around, and whether that should happen, bring Dobra on for the last 20 because fresh legs against a tiring defence rather than one player all game might be a better option. Yeah, we've now got those options now. I guess the thing that's frustrated me, and I'll be interested to see how the clubs feel about this as the season progresses, is reverting back to 3 substitutions. I do find it's quite limiting, but then it's going to be at League One level something that is going to favour the likes of us. It isn't going to favour everyone else, so maybe it's a bit selfish of us. Having thought, I don't like this, it just suits the big clubs. I got quite used to. I think 4 is more of an optimal number. 5 is a bit ridiculous when virtually half the team has changed, but 4 seems a bit more. So Tom Carroll arriving on a free, similar to Shani Aluko having spent most of his pre-season at Derby. We appear to be shopping in the same place as the Derby. 29, 1-year deal, I think it is. 16th senior signing of the summer. But Steve, a player of really excellent calibre and a really excellent central midfield option. Yeah, I am was only when I looked it up this evening, I realised he actually went to Swansea about 4.5 million at one stage.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been around. Not a player who necessarily going to score a lot of goals, but a passer as far as I can tell.
Yeah, Seb, last week we had questions, didn't we, about the type of central midfield cover, I guess we thought at that point, that we would like to bring in. And would you argue that Carroll's more of a similar player to Evans and Harper than a similar player to Flynn Downs, dare I say, or a
I do wonder whether there is a lack of that kind of player. Nolan, as we've all watched the last 3 years, and I'm sure you've discussed on here many times, is something of an enigma. There is clearly a lot of talent there, but he doesn't utilise it regularly enough.
Seb, are you of the school of? I remember us talking about this with Dave when we got relegated, and he wanted some bruisers in the team. Do you think we're a little bit lacking in attitude and menace in midfield?
Maybe. I mean, we saw that in the second half against Cheltenham. I know Evans was on a booking quite early on in the game, so he couldn't really sort of impose himself in the second half. I guess as the season goes on, potentially we might start to think, we really missed that midfield, that enforcer for those tough northern away days. But what an absolutely class player to get. He's come down from the Championship. Like Steve just said, he's gone for over 4 million quid in the past. And I really like the interviews he's given today, where he says, this isn't, I want to be, I like the pressure of coming here and wanting to do well. He's got a bit of class about him, and if the younger lads, the likes of El Mazzuni and Humphreys, if they can learn off him, then I think we'll do really, really well, because he's, his pedigree is absolutely superb, and he might well end up playing, a lot more than he was expecting. I didn't think we'd get a player of this kind of caliber for almost the backup reserve role, if that makes sense. I kind of figured that Evans and Harper would be the absolute nailed on starters throughout the season, and whoever comes in might play 10 games, 15 games, maybe here and there. But if he gets himself fit, there's absolutely no reason why he can't go on and make a decent amount of appearances for us, and if he does, we'll do well because of the quality of player that he is.
Yeah, I think, as you said during the week, that Harper is only 21, and kind of expecting an awful lot of consistency from him might be a bit much. Clearly a good player.
And maybe some of that enforcement and what's the word, knuckle draggingness, if that's a phrase, can come from, Burgess is 6'4". I think Edmondson's 6 foot plus. Piggott can throw it around. He's whatever that means.
Norwood.
Yeah, so there is some kind of streetwise, and Dobra can get in a street fight if he needs to as well. So maybe we're not too lightweight in that respect, but an excellent addition certainly nonetheless. Other additions elsewhere, and particularly relevant for this weekend, is former Ipswich right back. Do you remember when we had a first choice right back? No questions. David Wright. He's been at Norwich for quite a while.
Magilton made a big thing about trying to replace him and get someone better for a long time. And we never really got anyone better than him. Racina possibly was, but then Keane decided not to sign him because he had a drink driving conviction.
So Bradley Orr was in there, wasn't he? I think the only good one that we got close to was Richard Stearman, and then he only signed a line, didn't he, and disappeared back off to Wolves.
So he's a central defender playing right back, and I'm not sure it'd have been any more progressive than Chambers was over the longer term.
Maybe.
Possibly less so.
I like Stearman.
He was good in that role.
But Seb, another Ipswich Town face in the dugout for Saturday, in the away dugout, that is. I guess he was under 23s coach at Norwich. This is a pretty good appointment, isn't it?
Yeah, very good for him. He's gone straight in as assistant first team coach, hasn't he? Been at Norwich for a little while. He was at Colchester as well for a while, wasn't he? I think he sort of went to Colchester to learn his trade, and then he must have been at Norwich for a good few years now. But pleased for him. I always liked him as a player. Whenever you saw him in interviews, you could kind of get that sense that, you thought he might go further. He was always quite, I thought, articulate and seemed to be a bit of a studier of the game, shall we say. So, no, really, really pleased for him. It's a great move for all three of them, for Manning, for Hogg, and for David Wright, and hopefully they'll do well, just not on Saturday.
Matt Gill went there as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Gill went there and then got a nice big move to Swansea, didn't he?
Yeah, the well-trod path to MK now. So we wish, as you said, Seb, we wish him well, but for
not on Saturday,
from Sunday onwards. And lastly, a good factor as to why Steve is with us this evening is Turnstile Blues. I'm going to put a picture up and it will cover our faces, Steve, so I won't put it up for too long. But issue 23 there is, and for those of listening on the pod feed, Front cover is Paul Mariner. Yeah. So tell us about what we can expect this week. Sorry, in this issue.
This issue, which will be on sale on Saturday, usual times. We obviously mention the sad passing of Paul Mariner, and there's a piece from Gavin Barber on just why he was a special player, and it's kind of we're the generation who didn't quite see him, but those of us who are my father's generation clearly did. And yeah, it's I think we also look at our new owners and a little bit of background on it. Well, not really background because everyone's covered them, but cover that. But also what we'd like to see from the owners going forwards, some of which has been implemented already, starting with the football. And it's been a big bugbear of myself and many, many other fans. There's been no footballing structure. Everything has been wholly dependent on the first team manager. And I think there are signs that's going in place with the staff that we've brought in now to do roles we either had no one doing or someone was doing 5 jobs in Leo O'Neill's case. But it also talks about what we'd like to see in the community and greater involvement there, and lists some examples of good practice at other clubs.
Cool.
Some of which is at our neighbours up the A140.
Typically is at the moment, isn't it?
It's not always popular when we mention them, but where they do things right, it's something we should look to.
Yep.
We'd also like to see more of a link between the academy and the first team, not necessarily a direct route because players have got to be good enough, but there's some sort of pathway. What we've seen is a lot of players who've got to the first team and then had the odd game, and then we've brought in so many lone players of variable quality. They've never really got in there. And one of the other things footballing wise is to continue to support the ladies team. And well, we've seen what's happened there with the professional contract. So that's one area where there seems to have been an instant upgrade in what we're doing.
And we need to mention their 6-0 season opening win against Hounslow, which I guess was
division win 6-0.
We did talk about in the flagship that Hounslow had been a bit of a taken a bit of a beating most weeks last season and finished the season bottom and with 0 points. But it is the level up, and you just don't know until you get there. And so there's a lot of great stuff going on in the ITFC women's team.
So there's also an article from Matt Macon in this issue about the women's team. He watches them quite regularly. We also cover Dalian Atkinson, the trial of the policeman who killed him. Was found guilty of manslaughter, was concluded fairly recently, and Rob Freeman reflects on Dalian's career and his tragic death, really.
Yeah, Dalian Atkinson always a stranger because I started watching Ipswich. Purely, this sounds like a McGlory hunter, but the 91-92 season when I started to pay attention to football as a kid, and so that comes after Dalian Atkinson's town career, and he's always a player that excited me at Villa. He always scored that goal at Wimbledon, amazing goal in the opening Premier League season, and then to find out that he'd been at Ipswich, and then you see the hat trick at Borough. What a player! And did he talk about his departure, by any means?
A little bit. I think we just basically we couldn't afford very much in those days, and anyone who off. Kevin Wilson went to Chelsea for not a lot of money a few years before, and vague recollection of Kevin Wilson, not so much seeing him play, but being aware of it. And there was a sense we'd lost him cheaply and lost Dalian cheaply as a club, but that always kind of goes. We've been in a division below, and but going back to 91-92, it's a formative season. I was sort of interested, went to a few games, but you have a promotion season like that, and all of a sudden, a lot of people become very invested in the football club.
Yeah,
and we haven't had it. Well, we've probably had the year we stayed up under Mick, and the sort of couple of years after that, but we haven't really had that sort of sustained success for 15 years.
Yeah.
So there's a desperate need for it.
Indeed, yeah. You can't really. There comes a point where all the off-field optimism needs to be superseded by on-field success, doesn't it?
It's quite concerning that people who who is at 20, 25 now.
Yeah.
What their best memories? A couple of playoff runs.
Yeah, Arsenal in the cup, isn't it? So we'll come back at the end and we'll let folk know where they can find you guys on Saturday. But yeah, let me put another image of that up just so we can remind ourselves there. So yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Steve. Let's focus on MK, shall we? And I'm going to lean on Seb here a little bit to tell us all about what's going on with Milton Keynes Dons this season. A bit kind of a mixed start, it's fair to say, a draw, a defeat, and a victory.
That's it, yeah. Started the season with a 3-3 draw against Bolton, then lost to Sunderland 2-1, and then beat Charlton 2-1. I guess at this stage they're going to be a bit of an unknown quantity. We're only 3 games into this new managerial reign, so under Russell Martin, we all knew what you were going to get. You know, it was going to be very high possession-based football, but under the new guys, the possession has dropped off slightly. I've done some sort of nerdy research based on the first 3 games because I thought you'd like that. So across the season last year, they averaged 64% possession across the 46 games. This year so far, albeit with a far smaller sample pool, it's dropped down to 56% possession. But they do have a fair number of shots in their games. They're averaging 13 shots per game, with nearly 5 per game on target. So I think potentially with a couple of ropey defences, this could be a pretty good game on Saturday.
I've done some nerdy analysis as well, and their goals conceded has gone 3-2-1. So I'm thinking that tempting fate 0-0 because everyone's talking big goal scoring, goal fest here. I just feel like we're going to come to this later on, Steve. Along come Ipswich and ruin things for everyone, and it could be a 0-0. I've got my usual kind of stat pack, the basic bits and pieces. Let's just introduce the squad and some of the key bits and pieces of action there. And then we'll let Seb go on nerdy and tell us all about what's going on. So I'm hoping that my little dropped pin is better located. It looks far too east for my liking there, but I think that's probably good enough.
Just kind of straight north, straight out of Euston.
And also on a similar level of, I don't know which way longitude and latitude is, but almost same latitude as Ipswich.
A bit further south, isn't it?
Is it a little bit further south? But finally, a stadium in League One with more than 7,000 seats in it, having played Burton, Cheltenham, and Morecambe, and as 13th place finish last season, which is pretty disappointing for them because I think in terms of XG, MK certainly underperformed in respect to the chances created, as you said, Seb. Last time out, 2-1 against Charlton, and our last fixture then. If anyone remembers this, the 0-0.
I was thinking about this when I researched it earlier. I can't remember that at all. They all become a blur, a turgid blur. I cannot remember that one at all.
Yeah, one of those ones that trees that fall in the woods that no one hears. Can you remember that one, Steve?
I can remember it was 0-0.
It wasn't a classic, was it? So
is it under Lambert or is it under?
No, under Lambert.
Under Hurst, it was. Hurst. Sorry, Paul Kirk.
Was it Kirk?
There are similarities.
Of course, it was. Yeah. Because it was the latter end of the season, wasn't it? Towards the end, so definitely after February, I think. So yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah. Let's move it on in terms of ins and outs. Some important ones to flag there as well. Here come the graphics. There we go. I mean, the one I wanted to flag in terms of departures. So 5 signings in, 4 loans in. Though largely that was done by Russell Martin before he left for Swansea. But a player that we know very well from last season, and you talked about him on the live show, Seb, Scott Twining on a free in midfield is a pretty eye-catching signing at this level.
Yeah,
Mo Isa as well.
And again, Mo Isa as well. And also Troy Parrott's there as well on loan from Spurs. He's got a couple of goals already this season, so we know about him. I mean, to get Scott Twine, that when they did that deal in the summer, that's when I think people started to sort of sit up a little bit and think, hang on, these guys could well be the dark horses for the new season, because that's a really, really good bit of business. Mo Isa as well, proven at this level, decent record with Peterborough. So they have got some really, really good attacking options going forward, and hopefully we can keep them quiet on the weekend because the quality is there.
Yeah, and they've matched the outgoings and ingoings. So a few players out. I've meant we obviously know Scott Fraser, but such a standout performer for them last season. We know about the 9 out of 9 penalties. We'll get more on that later on. But 14 goals and 6 assists for Fraser, so by far and away the most kind of meaningful contributor for them in the number 10 position. But Cameron Jerome's also a loss for them, a focal point up front. He's gone to Luton. So that's kind of the round the houses there on MK and the ins and outs. Tell us more about your statistical analysis, Seb.
I did. It's what I mentioned earlier. Yeah, afraid I've not got much else at all, to be honest with you. As I said, they're a bit of an unknown quantity as we stand at the moment. But what I gave you was my notes. I'm going to do. Have you seen on Twitter like Clive Tildesley gets those match details and signs them for people? I'm going to do that with you with my iPad notes for your birthday. I'll give you this one for your birthday. with
all of 10 words in it. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, Clive's is a relative
and a result.
Yeah, exactly right.
yeah.
0-0, as you said. Well, fortunately, I delved a little bit further. So it's a 3-4-1-2 at the moment. And I think there's an attempt, certainly, to keep some continuity from Russell Martin. Steve, the appointment of Liam Manning, probably for the wider footballing world, is not a name they'd be familiar with, but is a player, a manager schooled in playing for the likes of George Burley, maybe even Magilton, alongside Magilton, and being in the City group, and surely is of the same kind of attitude and philosophy as Russell Martin in respect of playing football the right way, but possibly possession to the detriment of maybe results, perhaps.
Well, it sounds like a manager who's been appointed because of how they were set up to play and the players they had at the club already. Which again, when we talked about footballing structure earlier, the way Swansea and Brentford went about appointing managers, they had to fit the club, not find a manager and then change everything else to suit the manager. And certainly under Evans, the lack of continuity between managers at Ipswich has been enormous. So the logic behind this appointment for MK Dons makes perfect sense. I don't think I knew a lot about Liam Manning, but I did hear Joe earlier in the week again, and it was a very kind of thorough overview of what he'd done and his reputation.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, as much as it's really easy to poo-poo MK Dons from their history, you have to give at least a bit of credit for there's a clear identity that they're trying to establish with the way they play football. As you said, you talked about it just at the start there in terms of Evans and long-term criticisms of Marcus Evans, the lack of planning and long-term strategy. You can't accuse MK Dons of doing that, can you?
No. It was interesting because when that ground first opened, I had a friend who worked in Milton Keynes at the time, actually worked for the prison service. But he was a Wednesday fan, but just good excuse to go and have an afternoon on the beers and go watch the football. But a load of his colleagues from work came and they supported whatever club they'd supported. But their kids would like to go and watch games locally because they were in the town. So, yeah, regardless of the rights and wrongs, mainly the wrongs of how that club came into existence, sort of in the medium to long term, they'll kind of just establish themselves and it will gradually get forgotten about.
The best thing they can do is try to separate themselves away, and it is a regretful moment in British footballing history, frankly. But eventually, history moves on, and we all have to kind of focus on the now. So, yeah, I'd expect a continuation of the three at the back. I mean, this tripod. I was trying to find out. Can you have a 3 covalent bonds thing? I'm trying to remember my chemistry.
Should know hydrocarbons.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like an H2O. But this tripod, I'm going to call it, of Twine in the number 10 position and Isa and Parrott up front. Parrott, I think, has got a couple of goals for them now. I think.
Yeah, I think Isa scored as well, hasn't he? He's got 1,
possibly. But that is a pretty fearsome front 3 for any team in this division, isn't it, Seb?
That's the threat. Yeah, the defence is going to have to really, really be on it because the quality, like we said, is there. We saw what Twine did against Swindon. Okay, he scored the wonder goal, but in that number 10 position, he can really pull the strings. Parrott obviously had, was it 3-4 goals for us, I think, last season. So bit of experience at this level. Isa proven with Peterborough. So that is the threat, and the defence is going to have to be really, really on it. And also, it's going to be important that the Twine in the number 10 position, Harper or Evans, if they play, presumably they both will start on Saturday, they don't want to be getting dragged too far out of position, sort of chasing him. They're going to have to hand him off to each other and make sure the communication lines are really, really good from those four, the two midfielders and the two centre backs, because the full backs are going to be bombing on, and they're going to have to make sure the four players left to deal with the threat are going to have to really, really be on it a lot better than they were at Cheltenham.
Yeah, and Burton,
yeah. We've kind of focused on the threat that MK Dons pose as well, but you alluded to this, Seb, as well. We mentioned it already. 6 goals conceded is the joint worst in the division, along with Bolton and another team not too far away from me, who are also on 6 goals conceded. That's Ipswich, by the way. I now live in Ipswich, in case that wasn't clear. There are going to be, there's possession there. There's chances created, but there are chances conceded as well. Last season, 12 clean sheets. It wasn't brilliant. They would concede on average 1.3 goals a game. So as much as there is that attacking threat, there is also an opportunity to get at them as well. 3 at the back against kind of, the midfield 3 and the front man is an opportunity to, dominate them at least in terms of personnel there. Do you guys think we'll go for the 2 up front or the 1 up front again? Yeah.
I think we'll probably start like we did against Morecambe, assuming we have players fit.
Yeah. The big question really is,
given the way he went off, the timing that he went off at.
Yeah,
we might not have a choice but to play one up front.
Yeah, and Bon has tweeted or Instagram today that he's keen to make amends he's had a few days to reflect on his miss and is keen to put it right. The big debate, and I think we're still having this, and it's pertinent given where he signed from, is how we utilise Scott Fraser. He's played across all the 3 positions now in that attacking midfield position. Yeah. This is his heat map for the whole season with MK last year. Sorry to cover our faces, so I can't see your reactions to that. But he was in the number 10 last season for MK, but you can see that he takes this left, drifts out and takes this position out on the left-hand side. Cook just hasn't got this right yet, and I think the worry that we've got collectively, it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on this, guys, is whether he's going to continue to kind of do the ball in the cups kind of game and just move people around until something clicks.
Well, he started on the right, didn't he, against Cheltenham the other night? In fact, he played on the right most of the game. He's not an out-and-out winger like me and Ben discussed last night. He sort of tucked in a little bit. But
I thought you were going to say you're now an out winger like me and Ben.
I wasn't keen on him on the right-hand side. I prefer him on the left, like the heat map shows there. And as we discussed last night, I guess, the involvement that he'll get will be when the fullback is just constantly bombing past him all game and he can look to really, really pick him out. I understand people are frustrated because he's not playing in the number 10 role, but he's not an out-and-out winger. He is tucking in and still getting on the ball, just not being as influential as we would have liked so far, given his numbers from from last season. But, as Cook has said, things will take time to gel. We've got Edwards on one side, Fraser on the other. Piggott was dropping deep the other night with Bon as the out-and-out striker. And it did work in the first half. It worked well. They were passing really, really well, passing with intent. The 3 players were linking up quite well. It's just a case of, is he going to be as useful tucked in slightly if the fullback isn't going outside him all game?
Yeah, and I do wonder about that left position now. Feels like it's Edwards' to lose, isn't it? So,
yeah, I would have thought so. They did swap a couple of times during the game, and Edwards went into the number 10 position at one point, but I think that was mainly due to fitness. I don't think he could keep up the running down the wings. That's why I think he moved into the number 10 for about a 10-15 minute period in the second half. But yeah, Edwards is the one to lose that spot because, as we've said, he was superb.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that I felt about the first 2 games is, the defence, we've let in some bad goals, but the weakest part I thought was the 3 behind the striker, and that seems to have been a bit better from what I saw on iFollow and Seb has said on Tuesday. But I don't think those players linked up or quite knew what they were doing in the first 2 games. I mean, Chaplin really drifted through that game against Morecambe, apart from when he linked up with Fraser for the first goal.
Yeah.
I don't remember much else from him. It wasn't that he wasn't doing anything or trying to do things. It just didn't work. And that's where I think players aren't quite used to what we're doing or used to each other yet. And that will presumably come.
So to that point, Steve, a lot of people are getting anxious, quite rightly, about the results.
We use the G word.
So I was going to kind of. It feels like how long does this team need to do the G word in your book?
I thought we'd be better than this. One of my concerns about the scale of the changes was that without a baseline, everybody's new and everyone takes time to adjust to what's happening. You've only got to look at the last 2 summers we had significant change when Paul Hurst was here and Roy Keane's first summer, and how well those 2 went to realise it's not actually a panacea just getting rid of players. Because another thing that happens is people see the faults of the players they watch every week. They don't so often pick the faults of opposition players. They just see the better bits and highlights. And so there's always like, we can get better than that. That player doesn't do that very well. And sometimes they do other things, and how they fit together gets lost. So I thought there's always going to be a risk in getting this season up and running quickly. I thought we'd be a bit more coordinated than we have been. And the ultra positive view is, actually, if Penny and Wolfenden hadn't managed a ridiculous back pass situation between them, if Fraser scores a penalty, if Bond scores, we might have done this, but we didn't. And we're now 4 games in. You want to count a cup game. We lost to a League 2 side who played a load of reserve players. That's not good either. Doesn't matter how well we played. We've played 4 games and we've got 1 point, 1 draw out of them. It's not very concerning yet. But as I said when Ben discussed yesterday, that if we don't win Saturday, and then all the pressure's on the following week, and then if we don't win that, we start to become a bit like Paul Hurst time here, where we weren't necessarily dreadful early on. There are some clear failings, but instead of solving those failings, we kind of chucked everything up in the air for Norwich, alienated our best player in Bart. And
I don't think Paul Cook is going to make
that even worse from that.
There was a really pivotal moment last season. Not, I guess, pivotal in respect of the outcome of basically getting rid of that entire team. Was that week, Seb, that everyone was kind of fabled week of, I've got a whole week on the training ground. There's no Saturday, Tuesday. I've got the whole week to play with it, to coach this team into doing what I wanted to do. That week in March, I think it was, it's gone down as quite a symbolic failure, and has led to all of the kind of a lot of the repercussions in the recruitment.
How many other teams were doing double training sessions in that point in a COVID hit season? And clearly the players weren't as fit as Cook wanted them to be, and clearly they weren't as fit as they should have been. But Lambert sacked the fitness coach in about September, October. He was working remotely from Scotland. And we then had that spell of getting a muscle injury every first half for 4 or 5 games in a row, it seems. So not all of that's on the players. A lot of that's structural, I think.
Yeah, I didn't want to rate that up. What I was going to say is there's no Tuesday game next week. So
it was a bit of a clear week and a bit of, I'd imagine our transfer business surely now is done. So he's got, a clear week. He's got the squad he now wants. There shouldn't, in theory, be any new arrivals. Edmondson, I think they've said, is about a week away or so. I think it was Kings of Anglia earlier saying potentially he's penciled in for next week. So we've got players starting to come back in, and hopefully we'll really start to see the benefits of a good solid week training with the settled squad now being as it is assembled.
Yeah, I mean.
I'd say the bit when we clicked after we scored on Tuesday for 15 minutes, it's like, that's good.
The first half of Cheltenham was the same. Yeah, exactly the same.
Some of it. That's what I meant. Sorry, not Saturday. We didn't play that well at all on Saturday. We had some odd bits and moves, but so some of it is just confidence, and as we've seen, the confidence disappears as well if you start losing too many games and players are scared to try things because they think it won't come off, or they're worried about losing the ball, and so yeah. But there's too much quality in this squad not to be reasonably okay, and reasonably okay is playoffs are just outside 2 or 3 months in.
Yeah. Well, well, we've got a good opportunity on there is no team in this division we should fear playing anyway. So we go into this one with the usual hope, and whether our hope is rewarded, we will find out. I've got there's 2 more things we need to do. Well, there's 3 more things to do, isn't there? The first thing is I now appear to have made a little feature for myself, which is Richard's player to look out for. After picking, I'm going to keep mentioning this. Cole Stockton's on my list, and the Burton guy who I've forgotten, Joe Powell.
Lucas Akins.
No, it was Joe Powell last week.
Akins was their best player by some distance.
He was, but he scored, so that's what I'm going with. So the player that the less than obvious player I'm going to pick out for you is Matt O'Reilly. He's actually the captain, 20 years old, signed on a free transfer from Fulham. Had attracted some really some interest from teams in Europe. I think Dortmund were sniffing around. So central midfielder, really good caliber there. So he's one to look out for, along with the obvious 3 that we talked about. But Josh McEachran is there. Those of you who know, remember Chelsea.
Is he ex-Chelsea? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
Brentford?
he might. Yes. Yeah. So I think he's back from injury, so he might stake a claim in central midfield as well. He might even take Matt O'Reilly's spot. But there's a different name for you. The other thing we must do, number 2, is I need a prediction from both of you. So Steve, we'll start with you.
I think we'll win 2-1. I don't think it will be a very comfortable 2-1 win, but I think we'll just about do it.
Seb?
I think we're going to draw. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
I think I'm going to follow suit with a draw, and I think I'm tempted to go for the 0-0 because I've mentioned it at the start, and it would look really cool if it came off. But I'm gonna back Seb. I'm gonna go. I think there will be goals. I think these 2 teams can't defend. So let's go for a 2-2. It could be a 3-2, frankly, but let's go for a 2-2. The other thing this feature that as we evolve this show, more and more kind of things become features. Seb, have you got a fact of the week? And if you do, I have a treat lined up for you.
I've heard about this. I do have a fact of the week. Yeah.
Okay. Ready for this? I've done a jingle for you. And what I did was I thought, what is the kind of jingle that Seb would like? And what would the people like to hear? And what do they think when they think Seb Brown? So here it is. There you go.
Brilliant. I don't know what to say. Where's the picture from? Random night out somewhere, or
no? So this I tried. So I had to find a kind of. So for those of you listening to that, it kind of had a bit of a circus vibe to it, and there was a picture of Seb looking very cheerful, and that was from the pre-match away at Nottingham Forest at the end of the season, 17-18 was it? Or 16-17.
Oh, 16, the inflatables day with Mick the dinosaur.
We were showing off our dinosaur inflatables, joining in with the Bants, and then Forest beat us 3-0 to survive on the last day.
Josh Emmanuel had an absolute nightmare.
I don't think anyone came out of their game with
but I think he either gave away 2 penalties or 1, and he should have probably given away a second one.
I think Dominic Samuel?
Dominic Samuel started up front for us, and awful.
The only saving grace of that game was we wore that really awesome white away shirt, and I've got a signed Josh Emmanuel version of that shirt, so maybe from that day, you never know. So Seb, I'm distracting us. Your fact of the week.
Well, the obvious one obviously is if you look at Dean Lewington, I mean, just to mention his record, it's absolutely outstanding. He's got 839 appearances. He had 32 for Wimbledon and then 807 so far for MK Dons, and he's still going, which is an absolutely amazing achievement. But that's not actually my fact of the day. It's an interesting fact, but it's not my fact of the day. My fact of the day is that, did you know Milton Keynes has more bridges than Venice?
No, I didn't.
I love the silence and just the blank stares back at me. I just thought that was quite interesting. I never thought
it's got a larger footprint than Venice, and there's bridges all over the various dual carriageways and the like. So it's probably yeah.
There you go. Steve's brought logic into this.
Yeah.
You need to do better. I think. I feel like I need to just bookend that with thanks for that, Seb. And,
or just wah wah wah.
Well, what I was going to do is I'll put the theme tune back on, and that will give it the kind of the level of sophistication and style that it deserves. There you go, Seb's fact of the week. We will endeavour to do more of those, and maybe I need to change the theme tune up every week.
But not the graphics. The graphics are spectacular.
Thank you very much. Well, looking at the graphics, I changed the music. Another feature which has its own intro and music is Football Room 101. That's easy for me to say. Let's have a look at that, shall we? Updated there to reflect.
You've claimed the 2-0, have you? Even though it's a draw.
Right. Yeah, so one of these rare moments where a 50-50 vote on Twitter. I'm claiming the victory because everyone in the chat last week said
everyone. Was it everyone? Was it?
Pretty much everyone. You couldn't even win over Seabass, and he's called Sebastian. So that's why I kind of awarded myself the win there. So 2-0 to me. We've got a guest contributor though, so we'll have to fight. If Steve wins, we're fighting over that point, or maybe just out of sympathy, I'll let you have it.
Brilliant.
So, reminder that this feature is us using this podcast as an opportunity to chuck an aspect of watching football, watching Ipswich Town into the bin, frankly. So last week we voted in pointless appealing for decisions which are just bloody obvious. So what have we got this week? We'll start with Steve as our guest.
So football parochialism, this sense from fans that we're the only team something happens to. We're the only team that ever loses to a club who've lost 5 in a row. That's just reverting to the mean. It's going to happen at some point. We're the only team who gets injuries.
Yes.
Although we potentially have this problem with recovering from injuries and players not recovering, but that's a sort of side issue. And I think fans just generally focus on their own club and then kind of ignore all this other stuff. And it's almost like, slight sense of victimhood.
Yeah, well, and I've fallen into the trap, haven't I? Because I said along come Ipswich when I talked about the 0-0 draw. So there you go. We're the ones that your point. Am I right in saying it's like the along come Ipswich, as in the team's on a really crap run and they'll beat us, and that only happens to us. That doesn't happen to any other team. Is that basically the gist?
Yeah, pretty much.
I buy that. I think it's very fair, And of course, there's no interest given to other teams. And I'm sure if you went on their forums and their Twitter, they'd be saying exactly the same stuff as us.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like the Truman Show kind of syndrome, isn't it? Where you think you're the star, you're the only ones that it could happen to.
Yeah, we're not.
No, we're not. There you go. Seb, what have you? Any response to that? And then give us your pitch for the week.
No, it's a great point. Like you say, we never look really outside of our own spheres, do we? And, you must be right. These kind of things will happen to every single club. We just kind of assume that we are the unlucky ones or the ones guaranteed. If a striker hasn't scored for 15 games, along come Ipswich, like he just said. But it must happen to all clubs. So, no, it's a great point. My one this week is pretty short and sweet, despite Rich's attempt to steal it on the flagship show at the weekend. I do also have a timestamp WhatsApp that I sent on Saturday to him, so I do have unequivocal proof that I got in there first. My one is very simple. It is stutters in penalty run-ups. I'm not quite sure when it started. Pogba seems to be doing it forever in the Premier League. I don't know when it became a thing. And when they score, okay, great, it looks quite good, but I'm very much of the old school of just run up and hit it. You know, we saw Fraser last weekend do the little stutter, and it was a woeful penalty. We saw it in the Euros with Rashford and Sancho. Just hit it. If you think of the great penalty takers over the years, the likes of Letitia and Shearer, etc., they never did that. They would pick their spot. They would probably practice it 100 times a week, and on a match day, if they were needed to, they would just run up and strike the ball as hard as they could and put it in areas where the goalkeeper's not going to get to. So mine is very straightforward. Stop doing stutters in run-ups. Power behind the ball, and that's what I want to put in room 101.
And I can hear Michael Warner, our mate in Brisbane, shouting, well, that was my idea. Rich nicked that from me. And now, I'd just like to, this is the great thing about hosting. And I'm sure, Seb, we'll let you host one of these shows and then you can take your revenge on me. Here's a tweet that I posted on the 11th of July. Let's be clear, even before tonight, and this is the night of the England penalty shootout defeat in the Euros, stuttering run-up pens were shit and needed throwing in the bin. So that is a month and a bit ago. So,
well, in my defence, I didn't see that because I've had you on mute for the last 4 years. So I can't see that. So that's not fair. That can't influence the decision.
You're not on my Twitter. You don't get notifications when I tweet.
Blocked years ago, mate.
Going back to the Euros, I've got a bit of sympathy for the way Rashford did his.
Well, he hit the post, didn't he? It was marginal.
Oh yeah, he looks like a genius.
People the wrong way, and whereas I think that's quite different to Fraser's on Saturday.
It just doesn't fill me with any confidence. If I see them doing the stutter in the run-up, I immediately think something's going to go wrong. Why would you do it?
Yeah. Although, when Fraser lines up, he looks like he's going to hit it right-footed.
Yeah.
But there was a 3.5 minute gap, I think, between that penalty being given and taken. There was a long delay. The bloke who also scored the own goal and gave away the penalty didn't protest at all. It looked quite soft when it was right in front of us, but there was definite contact. It's a clear penalty.
Yeah.
But then there was a lot of moaning from lots of other Burton players, and that didn't help.
Yeah.
All the reason for Fraser to make his mind up and just stick to it.
That's the gamesmanship in League One that we need to do a little bit more of as well, don't we? But mitigating circumstances. But I wholeheartedly agree to flip it around and to give you your dues. Seb, I agree with that one.
Well, let's have your one because it's going to win anyway because you'll just fudge it. So
the power has gone to my head. So I'm putting in, and this is another one that's very pertinent this week. I'm offering up to the Twitter poll these Puma third kits that all of these Champions League or top tier teams in Europe have been. I've got a picture on the YouTube for those of you who are listening and are not seen these yet. What these are? I'm saving your eyes from the pain of looking at what it looks like a training shirt. The team's logos are kind of embossed into the fabric. So rather than have the team badge, the name of the team is written across the chest with the sponsor just below it, and this kind of band with Borussia or Fenerbahce or Marseille written across the middle. It looks ridiculous, and I haven't looked at how much it costs, but I assume it's a ridiculous sum of money. Here's the Man City one.
It's worth saying it's 70 quid.
Is it 70 quid? Thank you.
The Man City one is, yeah.
And if that's not enough, the look of it, the copy on the Man City website to talk about it is even more reason to put it into room 101. I'm going to do my kind of salesman voice. You ready, guys? Here we go. The bold new progressive jersey takes traditional design and rewrites the rules to push the boundaries of football kit design. As part of Puma's faster football movement, the brand aims to challenge convention, innovate, and bring fresh products to football. What else have we got here? The most eye-catching feature of the jersey is the placement at the heart of the club's name, Man City, emblazoned across the front of the jersey in the club's bespoke font, no less, with the Puma cat centrally positioned to add balance to the visionary design. And there's some science as well. The third jersey combines 100% recycled polyester with advanced Puma dry cell thermoregulation technology to ensure uncompromising fit and mobility, keeping athletes dry and comfortable. Integrates an ultralight jacquard structure. Put in the comments if you know what a jacquard structure is. into the back of the jersey to enhance breathability during intense performance. I mean, just make a shirt that looks cool. Don't dick about by sticking weird little custom fonts with the team. Just stick the badge on, stick a sponsor on, and make it look pretty. They're just an absolute eyesore, and people who think they're going to set trends with it, no thank you. And if it's 70 quid as well, Seb, which will probably be the minimum, then they could do one. And
that'll be the custom. That won't be the athletic fit, climber cool technology one.
So there you go. There's my punt for Room 101 this week. I'm quite angry about it because third shirts, I've got no issue with third shirts in general, by the way. A real opportunity with a third shirt to do something exciting and innovative that isn't rubbish. I was going to swear there. That isn't contrived nonsense and doesn't look stupid. So massive misstep here from Puma and these clubs. I'm angry about it.
It will sell in its thousands.
Will it? I don't know. We'll see.
The Arsenal '92 away kit, which is the yellow and black.
But
that's now a cult classic of some description.
Well, I was going to remark about the shirt you've got behind you. I mean, if we wanted to do a third shirt for this season, the red and black striped one from 92-93 would be a great one.
That's a great shirt, and everybody wanted it at the time. It was never sold. That's just to cover up the fact my bookcase is an absolute tip because I need to sort it out.
Sorry, I'm trying to touch.
Lockdown has involved a lot of reading and new books. It's like, it's a tip.
No, good to see you doing something constructive there. So there are 3 punts. We will put a Twitter poll out. It will run next week, and we will see who the nation believes. Who got 70%.
The nation.
Yeah, well, it's out there. Our Twitter account is publicly available to everyone, so we don't discriminate there. So great stuff. Thank you guys for those. And should we put the music on one more time?
Yeah, I love the music. It's the best part of the show.
There you go. I think spoilers and a spoiler alert here. We are looking into the possibility of some kind of live show this season, maybe more than one. And I think I would love to find somewhere with a sound system good enough for me to pound that tune out at full blast with the subwoofers going, like I said, Citroen AX. Let's do some plugs. Let me put some scrolly stuff for those of you on YouTube. You can find us in all the. If you don't know where to find us so far, and you found the show, then as a pure coincidence, then we're all over Twitter, we're all over Instagram. Very much enjoying posting all of these images from Cheltenham. Seb was in the away end. Craig, I think, was doing corporate along with some friends, and met Marcus Stewart. So if you join us over on Instagram, Blue Monday Pod Team, you'll find all those kind of match day images as well as all of the usual stuff plugging our shows. So always worth a good follow there. The other thing I can draw your attention to is the flagship show for discussing the MK Dons draw, and that will be Mikey in the host chair, joined by Dave and Craig, I believe. We are recording that a little bit later than we have done the last few weeks, so that will probably go back out on the normal Monday morning time slot. So that's our bits and pieces of plugging. Steve, tell us where we can get a copy of Turnstile Blues on Saturday.
Turnstile Blues will, assuming we get the copies to the pub in time, we'll hopefully have some of the Greyhound about 1:30. We'll then be at Portman Road from very shortly afterwards. Usual places, Sir Alf. I'm normally where the people come out the fan zone towards the bus garage. I'd probably be somebody further up Portman Road as well. It's still only £1. Exact money is preferred at the moment because I don't think anyone's used change for the last year, and we might run out of change quite quickly. But hopefully see a lot of people and sell out in one go.
Yeah, it is worth. Finding the guys as soon as you can, because they do sell like hotcakes, and I always like the jeopardy of watching you guys waiting for the box of
we're kind of stuck though, because it's like you can't really have another beer because we want to be out at Portman Road for 1:30 because we sell a lot more because a lot of people get to the ground early.
Yeah,
it is like Yeah, need to do that.
Are you guys going to have any to buy online as well for those who aren't going?
Yeah, there is an eBay link, which I think we would need to tweet if we haven't done it already, where there are some available for those who can't make the game.
Yep. And we'll give that a retweet as well, so you can find that.
Yeah.
And Turnstile Blues is on Twitter, and you're on Twitter as well. Tell us where to find you.
I am at Steve_M10, and Turnstile Blues is at Turnstile. I think it's Turnstile_Blue. Is it Turnstile_Blues?
Ooh, let's find out. Keep talking.
Remember, it is at Turnstile_Blue.
There you go. Excellent stuff. Give the guys a follow, guys and girls doing fantastic work there. And go and get yourself a fanzine. There is nothing I think you can buy that's any good anywhere for £1. So frankly, unbelievable value, and really excellent production quality, excellent images. So well worth some of your time there. And if you can't travel down on Saturday, then we'll make sure you get that eBay link as well. That is your lot. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Firstly, we'll let Steve have the final word, but I want to thank you now for joining us, and wish you and all the Turnstile Blues folks all the very best for Saturday. Seb, and I wish you all the best for Saturday as well. You're traveling down. We're going to meet up finally. So, yeah, looking forward to Saturday, I guess.
Yeah, can't wait. Really, really excited. I'm sure my COVID test will go positive tomorrow morning or something to ruin it. But no, really looking forward to it. Can't wait to be back in the Greyhound, back in Portman Road, and catch up with people. It's been a long time.
Fantastic. Steve, we'll let you sign us out.
Well, first of all, I'm sure I'll see both of you in the pub, and look forward to seeing you both in person. But yeah, please come and buy Turnstile Blues, and then let's go and get 3 points and get this season up and running.